Can an AI ever be truly creative? And I'm not just talking about, can it write a poem or paint a pretty picture? I mean, can it have a genius idea, a real breakthrough that could change science or technology forever? Well, that's the huge question we're digging into today. And the answer, which comes from some really fascinating new research, is probably not what you're thinking.
All right, to get our heads around this, let's start with a little help from Albert Einstein himself. He had this idea that genius-level thinking wasn't some magic trick, pulling ideas out of thin air. He called it combinatory play. Basically, it's about connecting things that already exist, but in totally new and unexpected ways. It's like having the world's biggest Lego set. And this is the key to how we can even start to think about creativity in machines.
And that insight gives us something we can actually test, a concept the researchers call combinatorial creativity. So it's not magic, it's a method, making brand new ideas by mashing up familiar ones. And you see this all through history, right? Gutenberg took a wine press and combined it with the idea of movable type, and boom, the printing press was born. That's combinatorial creativity right there.
Okay, so if creativity is just about connecting the dots, you'd think today's large language models would be absolute geniuses. I mean, they've practically swallowed the entire internet. But here's the catch. While they can spit out a ton of ideas, they slam right into a wall that researchers call the big idea problem.
And there's a specific name for this problem: the ideation-execution gap. It's this massive canyon between an AI's idea, which might sound brilliant on the surface, and whether that idea could ever actually work in the real world. An AI might generate 100 proposals for a new scientific experiment, but it turns out almost all of them are deeply flawed.
So how exactly are they flawed? Well, the researchers started seeing some pretty common patterns. The ideas are often just practically impossible, or they make these wild, unrealistic assumptions. Sometimes they completely forget to compare their new idea to what we're already doing, or they suggest a plan that would literally cost billions of dollars. So creative? Maybe. Useful? Almost never.
And this brings us to the really brilliant part of this whole study. If you're going to try to fix this creativity gap, you've got to be able to measure it first. I mean, how do you put a score on an idea? Well, these researchers came up with a really clever framework to do exactly that.
So here's how they set it up. First, they built what they call a conceptual space. Just picture a giant, sprawling map with thousands of concepts all linked together. Then they give the AI a creative prompt. This is like a mission. Find a path from point A to point B on the map. But you have to follow certain rules. Like maybe you have to pass through point C, or you're not allowed to use a certain road. The unique path the AI comes up with, that's the creative artifact. That's its big idea.
Now, every single one of these artifacts, these ideas, gets scored on two absolutely critical things. First up is novelty. How surprising was this path? Did the AI find some clever, rare shortcut that no one else would think of? And second, there's utility. Was the idea actually useful? Did the path follow all the rules of the mission? Did it actually solve the problem they gave it?
So, with this test finally ready, the researchers could put AI creativity under a microscope. They ran these experiments on all sorts of models, big and small, and what they found was a really shocking and frankly fundamental pattern that nobody expected.
And this gets to the question that is on everybody's mind in the AI world, right? Can't we just scale our way out of this problem? If our current models aren't creative enough, let's just build bigger ones. More data, more power, problem solved, right?
Well, the answer, the research found, was a very clear, very loud no. And this chart is basically the smoking gun. What it shows is that as you add more rules, more of those utility constraints, the novelty of the AI's ideas just tanks. The more you force an AI to be practical and useful, the less original and creative it becomes. And here's the real kicker. This wasn't just a problem for the small, dinky models. The researchers saw this exact same downward trend no matter how big the model was. Whether it had 1 million parameters, which are kind of like its brain cells, or 100 million. Just making the AI bigger did not fix this fundamental problem. The trade-off was always there.
And what this all points to is the core finding of the research. There seems to be a fundamental novelty-utility trade-off baked right into the DNA of our current AI models. It seems you can ask for a really novel idea or a really useful one, but getting both at the same time is ridiculously hard. The more you constrain the AI to be grounded in reality, the more boring its ideas become.
So, what does this actually mean for the future of AI and that ideation-execution gap we started with? Well, the implications are actually pretty huge.
We can now connect this discovery all the way back to those real-world failures we talked about. Think about it. Those utility constraints from the experiment are just simple versions of real-world demands. An exclusion constraint, a don't use this rule, is just like telling an AI, hey, no unrealistic assumptions. An inclusion constraint, a you must use this rule, is like telling it, you have to compare your idea to what we already have.
And this leads us to the final and kind of stunning verdict. That incredibly frustrating ideation-execution gap, where all the AI's ideas sound great but fall apart under scrutiny, it might not be a bug we can just fix with a software patch. This research strongly suggests it might be a core, unavoidable feature of this novelty-utility trade-off, something that's just part of how these AIs are built. Which leaves us with one last really provocative thought. For years, the mantra in AI has been scale is all you need. Just make them bigger. But this research throws a real wrench in that idea. It suggests that when it comes to true, useful, world-changing creativity, scale might not be the answer at all. So, if making our AI models bigger and bigger isn't the path to genius, what is?